Okay, so the current video, it will focus on P3 of DSR, specifically and solely the die from grace sequence, or as people may recognize it as the limit cut sequence, just because people are given number assignments at the start of the die from grace sequence. This sequence is actually perhaps one of the more fun uh, parts of the entirety of DSR. I really love how well paced and how satisfying it is to execute P3, because it's a lot of, yet again, individual responsibility. The way the toolboxes are set up such that it's very delineated and really cool to see it happen. It's a really wonderful phase, but it's also uh, a slightly difficult phase for people to learn for the first time. So for the purposes of this video, I'm only going to focus on Die from Grace, which is the first half of P3. I'm going to interrupt the VOD every so often just to also annotate and make a point about something. We're going to look at the normal POV and then the wide POV, and we're going to look at an example of a POV from a person resolving their number 1 assignment, person resolving their number 2 assignment, and lastly the person resolving the number 3 assignment. And here and there I'll also point out key aspects that you should be mindful of as you're carrying out P3. With that said, we're currently looking at the normal POV. We have just completed P2 meteor sequence. We're going into the enrage sequence. Killing Thornton right here. He's has this debuff applied. We're burning him down. We're resolving Broad Swing. Remember that Broad Swing is a 3-to-1 dodge, so we're just going to dodge safely. In the previous video, and I will make it a point here as well, it is important for people to study mitigations. You cannot afford to be caught in a spot where you don't know what the mitigation schedule is for your specific role, because there's a high likelihood that people will die, may die. You don't want to chance it because they we were missing your mitigation. So you do definitely need to study mitigations, especially for Ultimate End and Final Chorus, which Final Chorus being the transition into P3, specifically because in Thornton's face after Meteor sequence when he's casting Ultimate End, you do not want to throw all of the tools. You want to throw what's necessary. Faint Adult Reprisal, a GCD Shield, Caracal, Soil, Sacred Soil. You want to throw enough just so that you survive the damage in the Thornton phase on P2, because you're going to need the party mitigation tools, preferably a tool from a tank. Once again, Kara Sacred Soil, GCD Shield, a tool from the range, typically Samba. I'm not familiar with the machinist tools that they have for party-wide mitigation, but they do need to put stuff out there, because as you may have seen if you've seen the previous video for Meteor Sequence, if you do not study the mitigations, if you're not prepared to know where to put your mitigations properly, people will explode, we will die. That's as simple of a reality that I hope people understand as we proceed with the fight. And this is going to be a consistent thing that's going to come in later phases as well. But once again, we're burning down Thornton. He casts 2 broad swings. He's casting the second one, but we're killing him beforehand. We're going to go into the P3 transition, so the map is going to change. And we're preparing for Final Course, so we're throwing out tools to prepare for heavy raid buster damage. When going into P3, Nidhogg will spawn facing south. It's typical and common for the main threat to just pull him north. Face him north. Nidhogg is going to do 2 autos, I believe. There's auto number 1, auto number 2, and we are entering Die from Grace after this 3rd auto. So Die from Grace is going out, or Limit Cut if you want to call it that. So what's important to know is once Nidhogg starts casting, and it's specifically for Die from Grace, he's locked in position. You can freely move, especially as the main threat, as the main tank, and you don't have to worry about Nidhogg flipping around, following the main thread right now, because we're in the Die from Grace cast. Now, let's take a look at this from the wide shot POV, just to see what we're working with here. So we're just coming back from meteors. Thornton's going to spawn at the north. He's going to do ultimate end. I'm just going to speed this along. Ultimate end is going to happen. It's a very beautiful ultimate. And then we're going into the Thornton Enrage sequence where he's going to do 2 broad swings. Broad swing number 1. Broad swing number 2, but we kill him before that and before he can even cast his Enrage. And here we go. We're going into P3. Yet again, this is the wide POV. The map is going to change. Throw out the party tools. Make sure everyone understands their role in the mitigation. And we have Nidhogg. Nidhogg has landed. Main threat's going to point him north. And I'm going to take off the HUD right here, just so that we have a very clean visual to work with later on. So I'm going to take a screenshot here. We'll come back to this later. There we go. Okay, cool. So we're going to come back to the screenshot later. It's not important right now. And then let me put a layer here. Okay, cool. So we're good to go. And so, once again, it's going to be 3 autos. Auto 1, Auto 2, Auto 3, and then Die from Grace. Nidhogg has locked position. The limit cut, quote unquote, the limit cut's being assigned to the party. Now we're gonna look at this POV and work with this one for this component of the video. So once again, meteor sequence. In this video, I am the G2 healer. I am group 2. Being group 2 is not important right now. I just need to voice this so we understand, what had happened in the prior sequence. But I am the G2 healer. We're going into the Enrage sequence, Broad Swing 1, Broad Swing 2. And we're going to kill him, put out the tools, prepare for the P3 transition. All right, cool. Nidhogg's out. 1, Auto 2, Auto 3, Die from Grace. So this is what's going to happen. Let me see if I can open up another paint. Yes, I can. All right, that's cool. So when Die from Grace starts happening, as you can see here on my enmity table and my cast bar table, once Die from Grace starts going out, and I'll actually zoom in on this so that we can get a better visual of what's going on. You want to pay attention to the party list, and very similar to how you calculate and determine who's your buddy in Sanctity dashes back in P2. You're going to use a similar logic here for resolving Die from Grace. So let's look at me. I am well, it's not important that I say that I'm a healer, but for my respective assignment, I have the number 1 assignment. I am a number 1. And then you see here, this warrior has a 2, Dark Knight 1, White Mage 2, Monk 3, Ninja 1, Dancer 3, Red Mage 3. The majority of this information is not important. For me, I do not care what everyone else got. What I do care about, though, is when Die from Grace is going out, the very first thing I do is I look at my assignment. I am a 1. Okay? The next thing that I do is I look at any buddies who are also 1. So I'm going to have my eyes trained on Senna, the Dark Knight, only because they are a number 1. So that's the first thing that I do, is look at the party list, figure out who is part of my number group, and I only really need to look at one other person in the number group. I don't have to look at Amelia. I don't care about Amelia. They are a 1, they are important. But for my purposes, I don't care. I just need to look at one other person in my number group to solve this mechanic instantly. So going back to the VOD here, it's the same information. You know, as a reminder, I am a 1, and I have my eyes trained on Senna, and I can see Senna as also a number 1. What we're going to do is everyone on the map is going to position in a very specific configuration so that we pre-position and we telegraph to everyone, hey, this is the spot I want to be at before any additional assignments go out for Die from Grace. So what does that mean? So at the start, you know, before Die from Grace goes out, here's Nidhogg's hitbox. Crudely drawn hitbox. What's going to have to happen in the setup when Die from Grace is casting, you're going to need a 1 on the east, west, and south of Nidhogg's cardinal, or just, you know, relative to true north. You're going to need a 3, you know, pre-position and telegraph their preferred spot. Again, east, west, and south. And the 2s will need to telegraph to each other and, you know, ideally pre-position at the north side of the hitbox at the relative northeast and relative northwest of Nidhogg's hitbox. That's what has to happen. This is the initial setup for Die from Grace. I'm going to clear this out, and then we're going to go back to the pod. So as you can see here, I'm a 1. As a 1, and let me see if I can draw this here just so I can reference later. Let's see. Make a crummy circle. Not too important. So you'll in the VOD, you'll see me kind of like, I'll be positioned over here. I am a 1. That's where you're going to see. So going back from the top, pay attention to where north is and pay attention to Nidhogg's hitbox. Die from Grace is going out, and the assignments haven't been given out, but the limit cut number of assignments have been given out. So I'm hanging out at the east. You see Maze here is assigned a 3. So Maze is moving with me. So we have a 1 and 3 in the east. We have a 1 and 3 in the south. And then off screen, there's a 1 and 3 over there. Mega Solomon is telegraphing as a 2 that they want to be at the northeast. They want to be up here. That's where Mega Solomon is telegraphing. They're saying, I want this spot. And Barrick over here is moving into position, and they're telegraphing that they want this spot. So, okay, the initial setup is done. We're good to go. We will now proceed. So it's at this stage that we're just waiting for the Die from Grace cast bar to finish. And as soon as it's finished, we're gonna get an additional assignment on top of our number assignment that we're about to see. So Die from Grace is finished casting, and bam, we have a new assignment to work with. So I'm gonna blow this up on the party list, and then we're gonna take a look at it in detail. So before Die from Grace finish, you know, we all had numbers. And as I said earlier, for my purposes, I only look at one other person in my number group to help me solve this mechanic instantly. I don't have to care about anyone else. Nobody else is important. The only person that's important is the person who has the same number group. And I just pick somebody at random. And in this case, I'm picking Senna for this example. Okay, so now looking at the party list then, now that Die from Grace has finished and we have a new additional assignment, we're going to see what's happening here. Okay. So I am a 1. We've established that. And then I have this circle. Cool. Let's look at Senna. Senna is also a 1. Senna also has a circle. Okay. So what does this mean? In Die from Grace, the circles mean that you're going to be the tower where you stand. And because I've worked this out, and then you'll learn this with experience too. Let's just look at Emilia, who's also a 1. Emilia also has a circle. So a truth in helping you solve Die from Grace instantly is if your number group has more than one circle. So here's me, here's Senna, here's Emilia. I'll repeat this again. If your number group has more than one circle, so Slurm, myself, I have a circle. Senna, who is also 1, has a circle. That instantly tells me, okay, then whoever the other number 1 is, I know they have a circle. 2 circles, everyone has a circle. That's how I make that determination and calculation. That's how you determine this. Now, let's pretend, well, actually, let's look at Solomon then. Let's pretend I am Solomon. So I'm a 2. So as a 2, I look for another 2. And in the 2s, you only have 2 people assigned a 2. Because as a 2, Solomon is assigned an arrow, that means the other 2 is going to be assigned an arrow. There is never a scenario where, especially for the 2s, there is never a scenario, and this applies for the 1s and 3s as well. There's never a scenario where if you see an arrow in the number group, there will be 2 circles. It will always be 2 arrows and a circle, or all circles and no arrows. That is the truth. So let's pretend I am 1. Or actually, let's just say I am 1 and I'm circle. And let's go back to Senna and let's change their assignment. Let's say Senna is an arrow. Now, using the logic that I just shared a moment ago, is the truth of arrows and the truth of circles says that if a number group has an arrow, then there's going to be another arrow. So that means, okay, I'm already mentally calculating what is going to be my positioning as we all negotiate later in the mechanic. Because if Senna is an arrow, then that means Emilia will be the opposite arrow assignment to Senna, if that's the case. Okay, so we're gonna go back to the VOD. So we have our assignments. So what do we do with this information? How are we supposed to position it and all that? So very simply put, in the VOD, the 1s have no arrows. Therefore, because the 1s have all circles, the circle, remember what I said about the circles. The circles basically just tell you when your debuff expires, you're going to be a tower where you stand. So as a 1 with, the 1s having all circles, we remember at the start of Die from Grace, we telegraph our preference for positioning. And we can just sit here. You just chill, wait for your debuff to expire, and then you move on to the next part of the mechanic. Now, if we were in a scenario where, let's just say, here is me in this on the east side, and let's just say I was given circle as an assignment, okay? And let's just say the one over here at the south was given a down arrow, okay? And remember the truth of arrows and circles. If there's any arrow in the number group, that means there's going to be that means there's 2 arrows in the number group. It doesn't matter how many circles, there's going to be 2 arrows in the number group. So let's look at the west here at number 3. And the 1 here, if the person who pre-positioned here is the down arrow, then that means the person over here is going to have an up arrow assignment. Okay. So this is what needs to happen. Although at the beginning of Diaphragm Grace, we telegraph our preferred position in preparation for the whole limit cut sequence, the reality is if you're positioned and if your number group has arrows, these folks are going to have to position such that, let me see, these guys are going to have to fix their position such that we do what's called Westhogg. We resolve the arrows in Westhogg fashion, meaning the arrows are going to have to be towers facing moving westward. The circle, once again, knowing that the circle basically just says when the debuff expires, the tower is going to spawn where you stand. The circle is going to have to move and take over the position where this person right here at the south wanted to go. This person right here with the downward facing arrow is going to have to take over the guy who's sitting on number 3's position. And this guy right here on the west position with the upward facing arrow has to move and make sure they're positioned on Charlie. Why are we doing all this kind of movement? It's because if you've done content where, for example, there's a cast called Marching Orders, or there's directionally based mechanics, especially like mechanics that you see in the Omega Raid series in the first tier. So once again, and forgive me, I'm a broken record, when the circle debuff expires, you are going to be a tower where you stand. When the debuff on an arrow expires, what's going to happen is, a Nidhogg clone is going to jump in, land where you stand, but depending on the direction that you're facing, that's where you'll bait a tower. So for example, if this person is facing downward, if they're facing south, and their debuff says, oh yeah, like upward arrow, that means with the person facing south, when the debuff expires and the clone, the Nidhogg clone lands on the person and hits them, the tower that's gonna spawn is gonna move forward in the direction that the person's body was snapshot and spawn a tower. So as you can painfully see as I'm slowly describing, here, this is what we have to do in order to safely resolve this mechanic in Westhogg fashion, which is the North American standard for PF. We do Westhogg. That was a lot of information and that was a lot of words, but let's go through it again. So east side, number 1 has circle. South side, number 1 has upward arrow. Let's just say for this example. West side, number 1 has downward arrow. So, what I said earlier is circle has to move here to respect Westhogg, and it'll make sense in a second. This guy right here with the upward arrow has to move over here, and the downward arrow is actually good. They can stay in this position. Now, why is it that the downward arrow can stay here and this upward arrow have to move on the east side? It's because ultimately what the arrows are going to need to do is the arrows will need a position in such a way that they are the arrows are facing west. That's why we call it Westhogg. So let's see. So with upward arrow moving over here, on this end. We have upward arrow now over here. Upward arrow is going to need to make sure they're facing west before their debuff expires. Downward arrow is going to need to make sure that they're facing west as well. So there is going to be some slight disengagement for this person over here when, it's getting close to their debuff expiring. They're going to have to lose a little bit of uptime unless they want to do an AoE combo, because if, when you're targeting something that you're attacking, you're facing it typically, unless you mess with your settings, but you are facing it. So this is the direction your character's facing while you're hitting them. And if you're a downward arrow and you snapshot, facing this guy right here, your tower is going to spawn, you facing this direction, it's gonna run opposite to you, and the tower is gonna spawn over here, and then you'll kill everyone. So that's it. It's really critical that you understand why this is important, so that you avoid messing this up and you avoid wiping the raid. So once again, the downward arrow needs to be on the west side, and then before the debuff expires, and like when there's like, as you're trying to learn the snapshots and getting company with everything, you're gonna want to make sure you disengage with about 2 seconds left on your debuff timer for your respective assignment, so that you can safely look in the direction. In this case, remember, we're doing Westhogg, looking west relative to true north up here, to bait your tower appropriately, so that when the snapshot happens, with you as downward arrow, the tower is going to travel and spawn over here. And then the person on the east side has it easy, admittedly, on the east side with the upward arrow, just because they can keep hitting the boss. Because when their debuff expires for the upward arrow, the tower is going to travel forward and spawn over here. So that is how you set up Westhogg and how you prepare for it. Because remember, at the start, we had our preferences. We were telegraphing, hey, I want to take east. Hey, I want to take west. I want to take south. But the moment your number group has arrows in their assignment, you now have to flex accordingly to make sure that you successfully bait the towers in the positions that you need to bait the towers, in order for the next set of people who have to soak the towers are able to soak the towers accordingly. Once again, it's very helpful to watch VOD. It's very helpful to look at the toolboxes, because this video cannot explain everything in one shot. Ultimately, when people are positioning, whether they have upward arrow, downward arrow, all facing west, or whether, the number group have all circles, and they can just chill in their position that they telegraphed they wanted, doesn't matter. What needs to happen is you'll need to bait towers on the west, east, and south of the hitbox for the people who are assigned a 1 or a 3. That is your responsibility. That's what you need to do to make sure we are successful for P3. The 2s have to do the same thing, but you have to bait your towers in such a way on the northern chunk of the hitbox, so that ultimately the towers end up in these positions that I'm drawing here on the relative northwest, relative northeast of the hitbox, for the 2s. So this is the 2's ultimate responsibility. So this is really important, that people understand and have a general awareness of, what has to happen in order for us to pull this off. I'm going to clear the board, and then let's see where we move from here. Is knowing this information, and it is a lot of information in the beginning, but I promise you, as you get more and more practice and you have an understanding of what's going on, things will flow so much quicker and easier. I'm going to replay this from the top. You know, we transition into P3 with Nidhogg jumping in. The main threat is going to take Nidhogg pointing true north. And Nidhogg is going to do 3 autos. Auto 1, Auto 2, Auto 3. And now Diaphragm Grace goes out, we get our number assignments, and you'll see people scurry around to telegraph their intention. So once again, we need a 1 and a 3 on the west, east, and south of the hitbox. We need 2s on the northwest, northeast of the hitbox. So I'll just illustrate this real quick. So a 1 and 3 here, a 1 and 3 here at the south, a 1 and 3 at the west. The original 1 and 3 I drew here is on the east. And then we need a 2 here, and we need a 2 here. That's what needs to happen right now. The people are telegraphing with body language. There's no callouts. There's no need for callouts. And as soon as Diaphragm Grace finishes, as I illustrated, earlier in the video, as soon as Diaphragm Grace finishes, then the next step goes in where, people have their assignments, whether they're circles, arrows, and stuff. I will typically make a call out just indicating in this specific configuration, and then I'll just zoom in here. In this specific configuration that we're seeing in the VOD, I may make a call out saying 2s have arrows. And that's it. If I didn't say anything else, that means the 1s and the 3s have circles. And there is no flexing needed for the 1s and 3s because they have no arrows to resolve. The call for 2s have arrows means the 2s have to pay attention and make sure that their bodies are positioned such that they're going to correctly bait their towers when the debuff expires. So that's the purpose, and that's how you read the call out. I do not recommend you depend on the call out. It's actually just quicker and easier for you to just do the initial scanning that I suggested, where you look at your number buddy, you see, are there 2 circles? Cool. I don't have to flex. If there's an arrow somewhere, then you have to pay attention and figure out the flex. Simple as that. Okay, so 2s have arrows. I'm not going to spend time this moment talking about what the 2s are going to have to do. We're going to focus on this POV where I'm resolving a 1. And there are 2 things that you need to do per your assignment, regardless if you're a 1, 2, or 3. So as soon as you get your assignment, 2s have arrows. That means 1s and 3s do not have arrows, meaning 1s and 3s do not have to flex. So I can keep DPSing and park my ass here and keep hitting the boss and make sure that people don't die to damage and all that good stuff. So what needs to happen here is you need to pay attention to the next cast that Nidhogg is going to do. He does one of 2 casts. This cast is called Gnash and Lash, and the other one is called Lash and Gnash. Gnash and Lash is just telling you you have to be out of the hitbox, Gnash, and for Lash, you'll have to move into the hitbox afterward. Lash and Gnash is just the opposite. You're gonna move into the hitbox for Lash, and later in the second half of the mechanic, well, I shouldn't call it mechanic, but the cast, for Gnash, Lash, you moved in, then you're gonna move out for Gnash. So that's how you read this part. The other part too is what you're doing is you're paying attention to the timer on your debuff once again, because you want to snapshot your tower in such a way that you're not going to troll the bait on your tower, especially if you're an arrow. The way Diaphragm Grace resolves, if I were to describe an order of operations, is your timer expires first. So as you can see here, I'm highlighting my debuff. You will bait first And about 1 to 1.5 seconds later, the first part of the in and out or outer in, doesn't matter, will resolve. So you pay attention to your timer first, then you have a 1 to 1.5 second window of time to resolve in or out or outer in. In this example on the VOD, it's going to be out then in. Why am I stressing this? Because once you master P3, you're going to realize, the first time you see it, it's going to be very overwhelming. There's going to be a lot of movement and a lot of like shit happening. But once you master this phase, you'll come to realize that P3 is perhaps one of the slowest, and especially Die from Grace, it's one of the slowest sequences in Ultimate Rating. It happens so slowly, and you'll hear it in the real-time callouts too, where I kind of have a little tune to how I do this phase to help people ground themselves and keep track of what's going on. And just even listening to the calls, you'll hear how slow the snapshots are, because that's how I do the calls specific to this phase. But once again, order of operations is first, you look at your timer. When your timer expires, then you're going to beat your tower. And then the second step is resolving the first part of out or in or out. In this case, Gnash and Lash out, then in. So we're going to let this VOD play, and we're paying attention to the timer here. So paying attention to the timer, I'm just waiting for it to tick down, and I'm getting my mitigations out because here's the other thing too. Looking at my debuff timer, as soon as it expires, you get a fire vulnerability and a physical vulnerability debuff, and then you bait your clone. Remember, I am a 1, so okay, the clone just jumped on me, and notice how I'm kind of like moving out of the hitbox already, because the first step of Gnash and Lash is going to resolve. Remember, Gnash and Lash is out then in, so I'm moving out of the hitbox, and then Gnash is going to resolve, so we need to be out, and then we move in. Cool. Now what's going to happen here, and again, we're looking at the POV from 1 for now. We're not worrying about anything else. We'll worry about it later as we go further into dissecting Die from Grace. We only want to focus on the 1s. As a 1, remember that I took the east side position. I was over here originally as a 1. Keep that in mind. And then when it was Gnash and Lash, I baited my tower, and then I made my way up here north. That out resolved, and then I moved in here so that I'm in the hitbox and I dodge the Lash. That means I have to go in. What I'm gonna have to do next is, this is why doing body language is so important too, because keep a mental note. I was here on the east side, and then I did this, then this. Eventually, everyone's inside the hitbox. Eventually, the 2 is going to have to bait their towers right over here, and then I'm a 1 right here. Because I was telegraphing and because I baited my tower sitting on the east side, I am going to have to take the northeast tower for the 2 when it's time to soak this tower. I am not going to the northwest tower because I was not there. The person here who was a 1 on the west side, as they're dodging out and in and all that good stuff, that's their tower. They're going to take the northwest tower. So that's as a 1, that's how you make that, you discern that. Is if you're sitting east, you're taking the east 2 tower. If you're sitting west as a 1, you're taking the west north tower for number 2. Okay, cool. So that makes sense, hopefully. Now, if I was a 1 down here, and I'm resolving out then in the out, whatever. What I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to get my ass all the way up here north. And when those number 2 towers spawn, I'm just chilling. I'm just sitting here. I'm just existing. So I'll try to draw this a little more cleanly. So when you're when you're baiting your 1 tower as south, you just go around. You're dodging and weaving for out then in. It doesn't matter. Like, you just do it. You end up here in north, and then you see the number 2 towers spawning. You ignore them. They're not your responsibility. They're the responsibility of the ones, at the respective east and west cardinals. That's their responsibility. As the one from the south side, your responsibility is going to come around the time that the 3s are baiting their towers. That's going to be your responsibility. And what you're going to have to do is, try to follow along with the, middle one, now north. When those 3s are out, you're going to have the fun job of getting your ass from north side and figuring out how to get to the south side to soak this number 3 tower once we're basically done with Diaphragm Grace. That's going to be your responsibility. The east and west number 3 towers, once they start spawning, are the responsibility of the 2s that baited their towers earlier. So the northeast 2 has to take the east tower. The northwest 2 will eventually have to take the west number 3 tower. So that's what's going on here. A lot of information. Let's watch it and see it play out. Once again, as a reminder, in this POV, I was a 1 once do not flex because we're all circles, and I was hanging out on the east. So as a 1 on the east, I'm gonna have to soak the number 2 northwest tower. So it's out, then in. 2s are baiting. Remember that the 2s have arrows, so they do have to face a certain direction, and they correctly do so. Barrack is facing west here. The POV is facing south right now, so bear that in mind. We're on the north side facing south. Barrack is a 2 facing west. Solomon is a 2 facing west, such that with Barrack being the forward bait, when his bait expires, his tower is going to travel over here, and then with Solomon being a back arrow facing west, his tower is going to travel back and then spawn over here where I'm trying to circle. So that's what's going on here. So at this point, as a 1 in position, I'm just waiting for a tower to spawn for my respective assignment. And so I'm taking the northeast tower because I was baiting east. And right here. So second set of towers are spawning. The 2s have baited their towers. And as a 1, I'm just sitting and waiting to bait my tower. No, we didn't see this in the first set of towers, but we're going to see it right now. So I've successfully stoked my tower. And you might be tempted to move away. You cannot do that. What you need to do whenever you're soaking any tower, it doesn't matter if it's a 1, 2, or 3 tower. When you're soaking a tower, you're gonna have a clone crash on you. And what you're waiting to see is the enmity table, as you just saw this instant. You're looking at your enmity table, and you're waiting for that clone to start casting something. You're waiting for the clone to start casting Gershgogol. Only when the clone starts casting Gershgogol will it be safe for you to move away from your ad, to move away from your clone, because only when the clone starts casting is when the clone locks position and will commit to doing a column AoE in the direction that the clone was baited. And what I really have to stress here is these clones target based on proximity. So where you position your body matters on the tower. When you're soaking your tower, you want to be as close to the center of the tower as possible, but also you want to do it in such a way that you are going to safely bait the clone away from the party and not kill anyone. So notice like right now, this moment, if we're looking at this tower that I'm sitting in, that I'm ready to soak, here's the middle of the tower, and here's my body. If I sat here, it's not completely dangerous, but it's not also preferable. This because if the Grishkogol cast goes off and the clone has locked position and is facing this way, it's dangerous. It'll be more safer and better to bait the clone over here facing this direction, so its Grishkogol goes off in this direction, so that there isn't any risk of the column AoE being baited anywhere near the party stack that's resolving on alpha over here. Because what you'll see sometimes is if people are too eager to move, I'll let this play out. The clone's going to spawn. If you do not wait for that enmity table, if you do not wait for that cast bar to appear, I guarantee you, if I moved here before this cast bar appeared and I move into the party stack because like I'm just eager to get out of the way, this fella right now, this fella is going to follow me. And guess what? He's going to face this direction, and then his column AoE is going to clip through and kill everyone. You have to wait for the clone to start casting before you can safely move away. I cannot stress this enough. And you'd be surprised how easily people mess it up because either they're not paying attention or they don't know the cue. And there's another visual cue you can use, but I don't think it's helpful. People like to wait until the clone starts glowing. As you can see, the clone lit up. I don't think that's helpful because I trust what the table is telling me more, because the table's a better representation of what's going on with the server as opposed to the animation, because the animations are not always true to the snapshot of what's going on. But that's just me. That's my recommendation. So taking it from the top, just because I've been talking a lot, as a reminder, I am east side, number 1 tower. I wait for the debuff to expire. It is Gnash and Lash, so first is out. Then in. 2s are baiting. Make sure you bait appropriately. As a 1 on the east, I'm taking the northeast tower bait. I'm just chilling and waiting for my tower to spawn. I'm waiting for my tower to resolve. I'm waiting for this clone to start casting and bait it away from the party. Perfect. And then I rejoin the party stack. So as a 1, you know, after you bait your clone, there is a party stack that's going on that you're going to have to soak. There are 2 party stacks that happen during P3. As a 1, you don't care about the first party stack because you're too busy baiting your tower. If you are not a 1, you have to resolve that party stack by clumping together at north side on alpha. For the second party stack that we're seeing right now, as a 1, you have to remember to come back to the party stack because it's really nasty heavy damage. And by the time we're seeing the second stack, we don't have as many tools on it as we do for the first party stack. So as a 1, after you bait your tower from the 2's tower, go back to the party stack. We take damage from the party stack, and the instant you take damage from the party stack, you will resolve the second in or out then in. So something that I glossed over is, you know, as a 1, I'm like, okay, I'm soaking the 2 tower at my respective side. At the same time that that's going on with you soaking the tower, Nidhogg starts casting another Lash and Gnash, or Lash and Gnash, or Gnash and Lash. So you have to pay attention to the cast. In this case, we're gonna go in, then out after resolving the party stack. So that's just something that you're gonna have to learn to track as you're as you're doing your respective assignment as a 1. So it's going to be in and out, but right now I'm just soaking my tower. I'm going to bait my clone. I'm waiting for the clone to start casting on the table. Move to the party stack. It's going to be in, then out. Move in. Then out. And then that's it. That's all you have to do as a 1. That's all your responsibility. From here, there are going to be 2 autos on the main threat. Hope to God that the people baiting the number 3 towers don't troll the shit and kill you all with the baits. There's going to be 2 autos. And then Nidhogg is going to randomly target a player on the map. And Nidhogg is going to cast Drachenlance. Drachenlance is a conal AoE. You can outrange it, but he's going to randomly target somebody. Cast it. It's a very fast cast too. It's like 2.5 seconds or something like that. And you just dodge it. That's all you have to do. So you do have to pay attention. And then we go into the second part of P3. We're not going to discuss it in this video. This will be segmented into its own video. But definitely do study it. What we're going to move on to now is looking at the POV for a number 2 assignment. So we're back here in P2, finishing up Sanctity, finishing up Meteors. We're going into the Enrage sequence for Thordan. Slowing this down, speeding it up. Ultimate End, make sure we have the tools out. We're going to go into Broad Swing. We'll dodge into it, kill Thordan, prepare for P3 transition. Homeboy Lance, point him to True North. Pre-position for Die from Grace for a limit cut assignment. And here we go. So in this POV, I am assigned a 2. And you see me that I instantly book it and start positioning, saying, hey, I want the northeast part of the map. So let's see. So, you know, typically I'll hang out here if I get a 2. Then I'll just move over here and that's what I'm saying right now is I want this spot. This is mine. And then the other 2 is just going to have to take this spot. Okay, cool. So that's the first part of the setup. Right now we're just waiting for Die for Grace to finish. So you see Maze here. Maze saw me and is like, oh, okay, you can have northeast. I'll take northwest. Die from Grace has finished. The 2s do not have arrows, so there's no flexing. Maze and I do not have to flex. When it's our turn to bait our towers, we'll just be here. And we don't have to do any changes. I don't care about anyone else. You can look at the party list if you want to try to decipher it, but that's, as a reminder, the only people you care about for your part of the mechanic are the people in the number group with you. So I only care about myself. I only care about Maze. I don't give a shit about the party. Maze and I have circles. Therefore, we do not have to do any sort of weird flexing. That's all you care about. Okay? So ones are going to do their thing. I don't care. I'm just focusing on myself. The cast is going to be Gnash and Lash. So reminder, I am a 2. I have to soak the first party stack as a 2. So notice that like I'm bundled up with the group up here in the north. The ones are baiting their towers. So we have the south, the east, the west, whatever. I am a 2. I have to be in this party stack because we're gonna take Eye of Tyrant, which is the stack damage. We need 5 bodies and a good deal of mitigation because this hurts like hell. As you can see, like our health dropped pretty significantly. Okay, so we're gonna resolve the first part of out. Let's see, out, then in, and so I'm resolving in. Look at my timer. This is why I say keep track of your timer. And remember the order of operations. My timer is at 3 seconds. I have less than 3 seconds to make it to my final position to bait my tower accordingly. So as soon as I resolve out and in, I'm in the hitbox, so I'm gonna have to now move out now that out and in is resolved. I'm gonna position to bait my tower. Now this is specific. This is gonna be a very specific note for twos. There is a solo sim. It's a really good sim, and in fact, it's such a nice sim because you can run it by yourself. You'll be in there with bots. You can simulate P3, P5, P6, and P7. Pretty much the rest of the fight after P2. If you can get past P2, use that solo sim and use it to help you get a basic understanding of the movement and then, orient yourself in space. But I will say this. What I don't like about the sim, but it makes sense why it's set up this way. The sim will train you to take your number 2 towers and bait them in buttfuck nowhere, off in Narnia. This is not acceptable. Do not do this. The sim is going to have you do this because the feedback the sim will give you is like, oh, the bot is dead. And then you'll come to the conclusion, oh, the bot died because I did something wrong. So the sim will train you to do this, to put the 2 towers to the far north, so fucking far away from the hitbox. Do not do this because if a tank or a melee has to, because of the number of assignments soak these towers, 1, they're going to hate you. 2, you're going to make it very dangerous for them to bait their ad because, they have to get their ass over here to resolve a stack after they, soak the tower. And you increase the risk of them baiting a Gershkogel going through the party stack or killing people. Do not do this. Do not bait the 2s far north. The sim trains you to do that. Do not do this. So, what you need to do is you need to kind of eyeball it. You can use this like tile right here. That's kind of like touching the hitbox. This is more or less okay. You can kind of use this tile to help you figure out how to bait your tower so that it's at least close enough so that the melee and tanks can get some uptime and also safely bait their towers away. And you'll see it when our towers spawn. So I'm just gonna take this from the top because I was talking for a little while. So the make-cut assignments go out. 2s, 1s, 3s get into position and telegraph your preference. I only care about Maze because Maze is a 2. I am a 2. Maze and I have circles, no flexing needed. We're resolving party stack at the north, and we're gonna have to do Gnash and Lash. So we're gonna have to be out then in. So we're up north, waiting for that party stack. Stay out. Move in. And now I'm going to start positioning because as a reminder, if you look at my debuff timer, I have less than 3 seconds to pull this off. I'm going to start moving into position to bait my tower as close to the hitbox as possible so that I don't troll my melee and tanks, and also to make this nice and tidy. And as soon as I'm done baiting my tower, I have to position to soak the second party stack. And look at the positioning of Maze and my tower. It's pretty clean. Mega Solomon is a tank, and Mega Solomon can wail on the boss. He's in range of being max melee. And when the ad jumps in on Mega Solomon and he has to bait it, he just needs to move a little bit out, and then the ad's going to be safely, striking off screen away from the party stack. So again, I baited my tower. I'm moving back to the party stack. It's going to be Gnash and Lash, so it's going to be out then in. At this point, I'm just waiting. I'm just mitigating. I'm just waiting for that party stack to go off. The instant that party stack goes off, and it goes off at the same time this cast finishes, bam, party stack goes off. Then I start moving into my final position. And using the same logic that we had when we were going over the ones. So here I was. I said I want to do the northeast bait. And then, I moved to the party stack here. When it comes my turn to soak my tower, I'm going to need to soak the number 3 tower here on east because I was telegraphing northeast. So after this party stack, in this example, it's Gnash and Lash. It's going to be out and in. Then I just mosey on over, sit in this tower, soak it, and then move into the hitbox. And then as soon as the in is resolved, I instantly need to move out so that I bait my ad safely away from everyone, and then my ad cleaves away from the party. So that's what's gonna have to happen. So the party stack goes off. I start moving to my respective assignment. It is out then in. So I'm out, then move in. And then I have to move out immediately because remember, these boys have to be baited. And I have to make sure I bait it away from the party. And as a reminder, the instant the ad starts casting on the enmity table, that's your signal to tell you, okay, it's been baited. Now, unfortunately, as you're learning this and you're trying to understand the timings, it is possible to accidentally linger, take too long to bait, and then it's over. He's already pointing inside and he's going to kill people. So you have to be very, very quick, and you're going to see it happen in real time when I'm doing my respective bait. And as a 2, that's it. That's all you have to do. Your responsibility is done. Remember, the Drachenlance randomly targets somebody. Just outrange it, get out of the way. And then we go into enumeration towers. And then that's the POV for the 2. Forgive me that this is an extensive video, but I think it's helpful to just cover all bases. So we're going to look at the number 3 POV to see how their responsibilities boil down. Once again, we're in P2. We're going to go into ultimate end. We're doing our thing. I'm going to let Thornton do his thing. Remember all that good stuff about mitigation. Don't fuck it up. Don't kill people by forgetting the feint, by forgetting the addle, by forgetting the reprisal, by forgetting to do your party mitigation. P3 transition. Big boy's going to land. Tank's going to face him north. The group is going to pre-position to tell everyone with body language, hey, I want to be here. So Die from Grace is out. I am a 3. I am looking at another number 3, which is Evie. So here I am. And then here's Evie. I don't care about Maze. I love Maze. He's a very sweet man. He's not important to me right now. I'm paying attention to Evie. Let's see what Evie gets. And let's see what I get. We're just waiting. We're already in positions. Okay, cool. Slurp got circle. All right, let's see what Evie got. Evie got arrow. All right, so what this instantly tells me, and as a reminder of what I covered earlier. So I said in my body language, hey, I want to take this guy, but I am a circle. I'm going to have to get out of the way and make sure that when it's my turn to bait my tower, that I'm actually baiting on the south side tower. Because as a reminder, south side, sorry, it's difficult to see. South side is circle. And in the case of arrows happening, the forward arrow has to be here. And then the back arrow, Jesus Christ, this is difficult. The back arrow has to bait accordingly over here. The arrows are all going to face west because it's Westhogg. So that's what's going to have to happen eventually. Because, here I'm saying, hey, I want to take east, but we have arrows. 3s have arrows. So I'm going to have to adjust. I'm going to have to flex and take the south. So taking this from the top, you know, I only care about one other 3 to tell me how to do the rest of this mechanic. I don't care about anyone else. I'm looking at Eevee. Eevee has arrow. Okay, time to flex because I'm a 3. It's gonna be Lash and Gnash. I got super lucky. So I'm moving to the north side to resolve the party stack as a 3. The first party stack. Making preparations. Party stack goes off. It's Lash. So the first step is uh move in. Tower spawn. Move out. Bait the ad. Cool. And as you saw, the ads appeared on the enmity table and they started casting. I'm a lazy ass because I know the timing of Gashkogel. I just sit there for a GCD casting and then I move to do some slide casting. Okay. And now we prepare for the second set of tower baits. Or I'm sorry, the third set of tower baits. So as a reminder, look at your debuff and remember the order of operations. Order of operations are first, you resolve your debuff. That's the very first thing. After you resolve your debuff, you're going to spend about 1.5 seconds to resolve the cast, which is Lash and Gnash. In this case, we're going to have to move in and then out. This is the order of operations for the 1s and 3s and all that good stuff. Okay. So at this point, I'm in position. I'm just waiting for my debuff to expire, so I bait my tower. And, as a reminder too, we're doing Westhogg. Look at Eevee. Eevee has downward arrow, so Eevee is going to need to make sure they face west so that when the debuff expires, the tower is going to travel and spawn on the opposite side near Charlie. And as a reminder, Maze is facing west because when his debuff expires, it's going to, because he's forward arrow, as he's facing west, the tower is going to travel forward and then spawn on the west side on 3. They're both facing the correct direction. I'm a circle. I just sit there and get hit. That's all I'm doing. So I'm waiting for my debuff to expire. Debuff has expired. Resolve Lash. We're moving in. Resolve out. And we're done. The 3's job is done. The 3 has probably the most chill job in the whole sequence. Because you can kind of just hang out on the south side after you soak your number 1 tower. Remember to dodge the Drachenlance. It'll randomly target somebody. You can outrange it, or you can just like move it to the hitbox on the opposite side. And then we go into enumeration towers. And then that's all there is to it. That's pretty much the entirety of Die from Grace. Now, there's a scenario or two that you'll come to see over time that kind of sucks. That you have to be prepared for. And that's I don't quite know what to name it, but this is what ends up happening in this scenario. So let's pretend a 1 and 3 are here and they're telegraphing and all that stuff. And so, the 1 ends up baiting there is going to be a tower here regardless. So there's going to be a 1 tower here. And then up here north, the 3 is taking the party stack at the beginning. There's going to be some fucked up situations where Nidhogg is doing out, then in. So the instant this 3 takes the damage from the party stack, you do not have enough time to go from north side, and you do not have enough time to run through the hitbox to make it out of the hitbox and soak the 1 tower. If it's out, then in. What you're gonna have to do, and I would recommend it, the tanks aren't gonna like what I'm about to say. What I recommend you do is you pop the instant you take the stack damage as a 3 up north at the beginning of Die from Grace, you pop sprint, you book it. If you have to do outs, then in. You know, the out is gonna resolve, and then eventually you can weave into the hitbox to resolve in. And then by the time you reach your tower, you'll be able to soak it and then bait your ad almost immediately. That's what we're about to see in the VOD. It's a really shit scenario, and then this also happens for the one that's in the center when they're taking the second party stack. That has to handle the south side tower. Same deal. If it's out and in, pop sprint. Make sure you're out of the hitbox for out, and then weave in for in, and then just try to make it to your tower and get in there. You cannot hesitate because it's very tight. It's a little scary skirting the hitbox. You can make it, but just be very, very careful. So we'll take a look at the VOD because that's what's gonna happen. I'm currently on Ninja. On my alt, we're going into P3. We're in P3. We're just hitting the boss. I'm doing ninja things. Okay, cool. So Limit is out. Pre-positioning. I'm saying, hey, I want south side on 3. I am looking at alone the warrior to see what their assignment is. 2s have arrows, so there's no flexing on 3. Okay, cool. As a 3, I'm gonna go to the north side to resolve the party stack, and guess what? It's Gnash and Lash. So I'm gonna have to be out and in. So what you're gonna see happen here is I'm gonna pop sprint. The instant we take damage from the stack, I'm booking it. And then I move in to resolve in, and then I bait my ad immediately. And then that's all there is to it. And then once again, you know, preparing for the next set of tower baits. I'm positioning, it's gonna be in then out, move in, move out, and then you're done. So let's take this from the top once again, just to clearly outline it. You know, we're waiting for the assignment. The assignment's out. We're telegraphing. Cool. No flex for my number group. I'm moving to take the party stack. It's going to be out then in. Pop sprint. Because I have to book it. Stay out. Move in. Bait. And then 2s are baiting. 1s are soaking on the north side. And then that's it. And then I'm going to bait my tower. Baiting my tower, it's in. Then out. Make sure to bait. And we're done. So as you see here, you know, it's good safety to just pop sprint if you have to get your ass to the south side, and then once that the out resolves, then you just weave in. And as you saw, I even made it ahead of time. I was kind of just sitting here for a little while, and then I moved a little ever so slightly out to make sure that my ad baited properly and would cleave, you know, safely away from the party. The only other thing I have to say about P3 for Die from Grace is you want to avoid this scenario. So the way the baits end up working out, and there's a reason why I was stressing what I was stressing. What you do is for order of operations, you look at the timer on your debuff. Now let's just simulate it here. And then, you know, you're paying attention to out then in or out. It doesn't matter what. But if you're an arrow, you want to do your buddy a favor who's eventually going to need to soak your tower. So what I like to do is I like to use, I call these rails, but I like to use this brick pattern right here. And then I'll go ahead and clear this out. I like to use this brick pattern to guide my baiting. These bricks are set up in such a way that if you are sitting on them and you're an arrow, so let's pretend I'm forward arrow, right? And then I have to bait my tower, and I have to resolve out. As forward arrow, what you can do is you can sit on that brick. Make sure you're facing west so that like when your debuff expires, your tower is going to travel forward. And this is the beauty of using the bricks. If you use the brick, the tower will spawn perfectly on the split on the hitbox so that, you know, um, the center of the tower is going to be touching the border of the hitbox. That's how the using these bricks works out. And it's really nice because there's going to be scenarios where, like, for example, if you wanted to play it safe and like you were over here, right? You're facing west and you're the forward arrow. Your debuff expires and your tower spawns. Your tower is going to travel and it'll spawn right here. Well, guess what? Yeah, you were playing it safe on your end too, like by being kind of far away from the hitbox so you don't get hit because you're nervous about it. Let's just say it's out then in. So you're playing it safe. You're outside the hitbox so you don't get hit by the by being in the hitbox. But by doing this, you just fucked over the person that's gonna have to take this tower in the future, because let's entertain a scenario where it's in then out. So for the person who has to take this tower in the future, if it's in, okay, cool, yeah, they're in. But guess what? When it's out, they're not gonna make it. They're not gonna be able to clear the hitbox in time to avoid the out. And because they're not gonna make it, they're gonna eat a damage down, or worse, they're gonna get punted into the wall and die. Well, actually, no, I'm exaggerating. They're not gonna end up in the wall, but they are very likely going to get hit. They're very likely going to eat a damage down. And this ad is gonna target whoever's closest. Hopefully it is them, and then, you know, the ad baits properly over here. So, all that to say, I know it's scary, but part of the reason why I was emphasizing in the beginning that the order of operations is you look at your debuff timer. Your debuff timer is going to expire first, and then you have 1 to 1.5 seconds to resolve in or out. And then it's going to be the first part of the out or in. That is the order of operations. You actually have a significant amount of time between step 1 to step 3 to bait in such a way, you know, by using these rails. And in this example, we're talking about the forward arrow. This also applies for the back arrow on the opposite side. But we're using the forward arrow as an example because it's easy to visualize what's going on. You want to use these rails so that the tower is going to travel and spawn perfectly, so that the future in or out or in, doesn't matter. The future Gnash and Lash, Lash and Gnash does not become a problem for the person who has to take your tower. And you avoid putting them in the position where they're at risk of getting hit and eating a damage down. So use these rails to guide you to make sure that the towers aren't too far out. You can also do that as a 2 as well. You use the rail, and as a 2, where you end up positioning, you kind of hug the tile over here on its biasing outward, such that, let's pretend once again, let's use the back arrow example. So this person has a downward arrow. So what that means is they're gonna have to face forward, so that when the debuff expires and, you know, they're sitting right here, the tower is going to travel and spawn about here, nice and tidy. So that's how you use these rails to guide you in baiting your towers when you're an arrow to make sure that you don't screw over your buddy in the future. And let's see if I can catch a quick sample of this. I'm just scanning around real quick right now to see what's going on with these towers. So there's the initial bait. And look how clean that is. Right at, you know, the center's like right at the edge of the hitbox. But let me see. Okay, these guys were circles, so they don't get a lot of credit. It really makes a difference, you know, just to make it bearable. I'm just quickly scanning around to see if I missed anything. The only other major thing to pay attention to is, yet again, mitigations. Because these party stacks that we take are really heavy-hitting attacks. If you don't mitigate properly, people are going to drop dead. If people drop dead, there's a very good chance that if they die prematurely and they didn't fulfill their responsibility, somebody else either has to flex and be aware of what responsibility the person that died needed to fulfill, or it's a wipe. And that's already very difficult as is because there's a lot of tracking. Now for this final segment of the video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to narrate in real time the general callouts for all of P3. I'm going to do it from the POV of 1. The callouts do not matter for whether you're a 1, 2, or 3. They're applicable for all cases. But, you know, going from ultimate end into the enrage sequence on Thornton. Just going to speed this along a little bit. Thornton is dead. Mitigate. Telegraph. Go ahead and telegraph. Twos have arrows. It's going to be out, then in. Stay out. Move in. Twos are baiting. Ones are soaking. It's going to be in, then out. Move in. Stay out. It's going to be 2 autos. Drachenlance. Dodge. Enum Towers. And we're done. For the purposes of this video, we're done. And those were the real-time callouts. And then for the next video, we'll focus on Enum Towers going into enrage sequence, and that'll be it.